Hi guys, Hari here, casting another game in the North American Dota 2 Pro Dota Qualifier for the 20K tournament, and this time we're in a round 2 game of Action versus J4S. Should be a good game. Anyway, I cast for Dota Live, so for those of you who aren't already following us on Twitch, please do so. It's twitch.tv/Dota Live. And otherwise, you can check out our website, which is dotalive.net, and follow us on Facebook or Twitter. I'm sure Holy will be very happy with me for having plugged all that, and now I can actually get into talking about the game. I'm going to try to talk a little bit more slowly this game than I did the previous one. And Holy, could you mute your mic, please? Because, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, let's start with the bans. Night Stalker is a slightly unusual ban, actually. Maybe something that they know specifically about J4S here, or maybe just a hero that they value a little bit more highly than is maybe valued in the competitive tier of these games, or these days. Other than that, pretty much everything's standard. Looks like we might have Furion making it through. We'll see if this last ban here will be the Furion. And if no, yeah, it will be. So Windrunner or Tide first pick, I would assume. And yeah, we have the first pick Windrunner. And actually getting messages from someone, I need to be smart enough to actually turn off notifications on Steam. There we go. All done. And back into this. So I would assume there's probably a Tide pick coming here, although I can't say for certain. Yeah, and there is the Tide, surely enough. So Windrunner Tide, pretty much the two most standard things other than what has been banned, and we'll have to see basically where they want to go from there. Any sort of support like Eventual Spirit or Veno is a possibility. At the same time, going in on something like the Enchantress is also still possible, or maybe one of the strong core heroes still left, like a Queen of Pain or Sand King, although it's unlikely you're going to go Sand King when you have Tide. And yep, there's the Veno, and then immediately the Queen of Pain pick. So it looks like Action really happy to have that Queen of Pain, something that they really wanted to get, and they were hoping that the J4S wouldn't take it when they passed it back to them, and happily enough they didn't. Queen of Pain, nice positional hero, pretty strong. Well, it can be good and can be bad against Tide. You know, if you get caught in the Ravage, Queen of Pain's in a lot of trouble because she requires some mobility to stay alive. But usually most Queen of Pain players can do a good enough job of staying out of the Ravage and then blinking in afterwards, immediately afterwards, and doing a ton of damage, which is really strong against the Tide. But then the Lich pick. Lich is not something we see too much these days, but kind of shows that they want to go into something a little bit more late gamey. Rather than trying to push necessarily, which is fine when they already have the Queen of Pain and Windrunner, although we'll have to see how they set up those lanes. Meanwhile, the Morphling coming out for the Dire here, so also being perfectly willing to go late game with the Radiant, going to Morphling it up. Morphling, a hero that I personally do not like at all. It's a hero that's very strong early on, very early, and it's very strong late, but from like 10 minutes or 15 minutes until like 45 minutes, the hero really just does basically nothing. So I don't really like it so much, but we'll see how it works out here. I'm sure I'll end up eating my own words. So I'd be interested to see how they end up doing these lanes here with the Lich pick, because I would assume you're going to have, you know, Windrunner, side lane solo, and Queen of Pain mid, or reverse those two, whatever. But then usually when you take Lich, you're looking to dual lane mid, because Lich is really a bad tri-lane hero. Lich needs experience to get his ultimate quickly and just doesn't do very well in a tri-lane, so I don't know that they would be doing that. So maybe dual laning mid, taking a jungle, and then putting the Queen of Pain and Windrunners both solo is a possibility. That would be my biggest guess at this point. And I guess what J4S is trying to avoid, because two of the most popular dual lane mid heroes would be the Riki and Anti-Mage. However, the Void is actually still in the pool, and Void is actually a very nice combo with Queen of Pain and with Lich, obviously. Void ult plus Lich ult is very strong. And I think that would be perfectly fine against the Dire team here. So I don't really see why they wouldn't necessarily move in on that. But who knows? I don't really know exactly what they're thinking. So there's infinite possibilities here. Maybe they'll be looking to grab their jungler here, or maybe they will just try setting up some sort of a tri-lane, or maybe, I mean, you know, it's also a possibility that you just put the Lich top with the Windrunner or with the Queen of Pain, most likely the Windrunner, and just have him sacrifice creeps constantly to bring the lane closer to the tower. So you do have an Earthshaker pick. That really continues to open up the options here. with putting the Earthshaker and supporting a side lane as well. I mean, Earthshaker can kind of work even with your solo heroes, especially in like something like your long lane, because you can use the Fissure to kind of guarantee that your solo hero doesn't get killed by the opposing tri-lane or whatever. But with Morph, it's highly possible that we don't have a tri-lane for them, which actually could be a reason why the Radiant would not choose to go with the dual mid strategy at this point, because you'd expect to see the Morphling probably plus, I guess Venomancer is a possibility, or plus CM mid. Usually Morphling's one of his strongest ways to be played is to put him in the dual mid with the Crystal Maiden, like I was saying. So at this point, I would expect to see probably the Veno Tide top, and then your CM Morphling mid, and get some sort of solo last. Instant Nyx pick, so I guess they're really happy with the Nyx against this lineup. Nyx's Magic Community is pretty strong very strong against Tide, obviously, because I mean BKB is like the most core item to get against Tide, and when you have a hero with a built-in Magic Community, that's all the better. It makes it easy for Nyx kind of go focus Tide with open wounds and raging on him, and if you can take down the Tide, or if kind of forces the Tide into a bad spot of having to decide whether he wants to pop the Ravage or not. So we'll have to see how their last pick is. I mean, Brood would be a possibility. Brood is pretty good against kind of a Lich team, but again, not so strong against Earthshaker. Earthshaker counters Brood later on, although not really early on. So, I mean, it would still be a possibility, and it is one of the best side lane solos still left in this pool. I mean, Puck is still a possibility as well as numerous other things. I mean, they could always try just get a normal side lane solo, not a sacrifice lane solo hero, and put their dual lane bottom. Although that's a bit more risky, because sending a dual lane bottom, if the opposing team does tri-lane, which looks to me like that has to be the case, and maybe they're going to put dual Lich Earthshaker and have the Nyx in the woods, which is kind of a possibility as well. I mean, like I was saying with the jungle hero, although Nyx is less commonly seen as a jungle hero in the competitive tier of play, and yeah, they do end up picking the Brood. So I guess they just decided that it was the best sacrifice lane solo left. Most likely it's going to be sacrifice lane, and we are going to, hopefully, I would assume, see the lanes that I would expect, which is the CM Morph mid, the Veno Tide top, Brood solo bottom. Meanwhile, from the Radiant, the lanes could be all sorts of things. It's still possible they try to send the Earthshaker with the top lane, and then put maybe the Lich and Nyx, just the two of them bottom. Because I don't know, it doesn't really matter how many heroes you have against the Brood. Either you have sentries or you don't, which we'll have to see if they do pick up those sentries early on to try to counter the Brood's effectiveness, or well, if they don't. But either way, whoever is mid is going to have an exceedingly difficult time with the Morphling CM. Fortunately, if it is Queen of Pain, she can just kind of blink away without too much difficulty. I mean, you can't blink when she's frostbitten up, but it's unlikely that they'll have enough burst to actually take her down in frostbite in time. So we'll have to see how that does turn out. So I guess I'll go over the players now for action. Playing on the Radiant, we have S4PO on, or Sapo, whatever, on Nyx. Earthshaker being played by SHP. Modog on the Windrunner. Lich being played by UW, and Sail on the Queen of Pain. Meanwhile, for the Dire, Venomancer being played by fucking Rockstar. Brood being played by Buck. Pink Power Rangers on the Crystal Maiden. Tide being played by FFS. I think almost all their names have something to do with profanity. And Radian on the Morphling. So I guess we're actually going to have a dual Tide CM mid. A little unusual. I would have expected to see the Morphling mid. The great thing about having the Morphling dual lane mid is that you're just always so close to the opposing heroes that it makes it very easy to waveform and initiate on them. Anyway, the Radiant looking through the Dire jungle here, hoping to catch someone. Looks like it's not happening. Morphling actually is going to try to... I don't know, what he's doing here is a little bit risky. I mean, he has waveform, so he figures he's safe, but you never really know. Meanwhile, Tide is just sitting mid to block. And Brood doing the very smart thing, coming down here as quickly as possible, knocking down all these trees with the first web, so that you can see if the supports are coming to gank her. Actually has gone Soul Ring recipe right away. It's a decent choice. Oh, and Crystal Maiden could be in a lot of trouble here. Lich actually has opted to go level 1 Frost Blast rather than level 1 Sacrifice. I guess since they were trying to gank, although when he didn't see anyone, maybe right there in that situation where he saw CM, he grabbed it. I didn't actually check beforehand. But yeah, so we will have a dual lane with Tide in the mid. A little bit more unusual in that regard, but it'll guarantee that Tide gets good levels in farm, which I guess if they knew that the Radiant was going to be sending a tri-lane top is actually just a smarter move. since yeah, the Tide would have a lot of difficulty top, whereas the Morphling might have an easier time farming. I mean, they have a dual range lane here against dual melee one range, so they can actually farm well as long as the creep wave is near enough to their towers. Obviously, if once the creep wave pushes down even a little bit, they're going to be in a lot of trouble because I mean they can't really survive tri-lane against dual lane against tri-lane. And the Morphling can probably survive with waiting for him, but the Venom would just be an easy kill. So they're really going to have to keep this lane here, but as long as they do, they will actually not have the most difficult time ever farming. So it'll actually just be on the Radiant here to actually pull this tough camp down here, the bottom left camp, out into the lane to pull the lane back and get it further away from their tower. Meanwhile, though, basically, I don't know, I do have to say I like the Dire's lanes here. You know, they have the dual lane mid, which is going to be strong against the Queen of Pain. I mean, Queen of Pain's not going to be forced out of the lane or anything, but she's not going to have an easy time here. Tide's going to get pretty good farm and good levels, which is really what he needs most is the good levels. And meanwhile, Brood should have a really easy time against this Windrunner bottom with no sentries up. I can't imagine the Brood having too much difficulty in this lane. Although, like I said, I don't really love the Soul Ring recipe first item choice. I'd rather, maybe a little bit more last hitting or something like that. Items going maybe for the Poor Man's Shield first and then to the Soul Ring. But anyway, here's what I was talking about. The lane has been pushed top now. Even without the top camp being pulled, actually, it was just kind of poor maintenance of creep equilibrium. The Veno is now 9 creeps down from half. Oh yeah, well I guess the reason why the creep equilibrium was destroyed because you have a Lich. Lich is very good, in your long lane because you can keep sacrificing creeps. You don't necessarily need to sacrifice creeps in your short lane. In the long, it'll pull it back like I was talking about. Oh, and I actually do... Wow, that really shouldn't happen. I didn't even think I would need to look down there anytime soon. There's really no way the Brood should... And actually, Queen of Pain being a little bit aggressive here. It does have her blink up, though. She's going to get out just fine. Anyway, there's not really any way whatsoever that the Windrunner should get a kill on the Brood without sentries. I mean, even with sentries, it should be really difficult, but without sentries, it should be nigh impossible. So... I don't really know exactly what happened there. But yeah, so Tide is going to have an easy time mid. Brood should, in theory, have had an easy time bottom. I think Brood is definitely favorable. When you're in side lane solo against solo, even in your easy lane, Brood should still have the advantage over Windrunner. And then, I mean, with the lane positioning for now, Morphling was getting decent farm top, so it should have all been good for them. Unfortunately, that Windrunner death puts things into question. And the other unfortunate mark is that now that the Lich does have level 2, he has 1 level in sacrifice. Basically like he should have had all along, and he is going to start sacrificing these creeps every time he gets a chance, which is definitely going to pull this lane back. And then the Dire will have to try to pull a creep spawn to maintain control of the lane, but one is already warded, and the other one will be very difficult and risky for them to pull 2 against 3. So anyway, let's take a look. Yeah, you can see the gold graph jumped up with that kill, but it had been in the Dire's favor. It actually kind of started to go back up. I don't know, I guess that has to do, if I had to say anything with maybe this Brood lane bottom, let's see, Brood is actually at 6-3 versus a 12-5 Windrunner. It's not terrible considering she got the kill, so she should have gotten a little bit of advantage while he was dead. But yeah, so as I was talking about top, the Lich has pulled back the lane enough now that the Morphling, well, more importantly the Venomancer, you can see how far back he has to play here. He does have 1 level in wards already though, so he's able to place a ward off to the side there and kind of keep vision of the Earthshaker, making sure the Earthshaker is not in position to set up a good Fissure. And meanwhile, the Morphling's still farming pretty well, so, I mean, that's pretty good. Morphling certainly does need his farm. Meanwhile, Crystal Maiden has actually rotated bottom. It looks like they're going on the Windrunner bottom. Windrunner should be going down. Crystal Maiden almost a little bit of nice blocking here. I didn't realize the Crystal Maiden does have haste. Oh, and actually, oh god, I hope that's not a lag spike in game. Please tell me that was just me. Oh no. The servers have been really bad today. Yeah, and Windrunner does pause the game. Wow. So... really unfortunate timing for a lag spike like that. Windrunner doing the right thing with the pause. Lich, though, meanwhile, is TPing in. He does not have enough mana for a nuke, and he does have sacrifice, but even with that, he will not have enough mana for a nuke, even if he sacrifices 15% of 500. No, still not enough for a nuke. So we're going to see how this turns out. Windrunner should be dead, though. Although Crystal Maiden gonna die to the tower. Wow, that's just embarrassing. And Windrunner actually makes it out, alright, alive, so I was completely wrong about that. I mean, the Lich didn't do anything, but it was just that I thought they would be able to finish off the Windrunner, but they were not, and Crystal Maiden had dove a little bit too much. being a little bit too aggressive with the haste. Although meanwhile, Morphling is able to pick up a kill top. Thanks to Lich TPing out, it was easier for them to actually be aggressive, which is what Morphling lanes are supposed to do early on. And yeah, Venomancer playing up as much as possible here. Actually maybe thinking about the Gale, but decides against it. Wasn't able to catch the Earthshaker. If they had been able to, that would have been another nice kill. Surprising though, the Nyx would actually get killed. Nyx is a very difficult hero to kill. And actually the Lich has rotated bottom here, placing down the sentries. This is kind of what Windrunner needs at this point. I guess despite getting the early kill, Brood was probably regaining an advantage in the lane, and Windrunner called for help. Meanwhile, though, Queen of Pain, the blast going to come out. Unfortunately, Frostbite is off cooldown. Queen of Pain actually opting to throw out her ult instead of... she thought she could get a kill there, probably on the Crystal Maiden. She actually would have... Blink was off cooldown, so she would have had time to blink away and survive, but thought she would actually turn that instead. A little bit questionable decision-making there, but trying to be aggressive. And now the Lich is actually, having placed the sentry's bottom, is just going to TV back up top. One sentry there. I don't know where the other sentry is. Probably just on Windrunner. Yeah, Windrunner just has it. So smart, just transferring that over there. Meanwhile, the Dire has managed to pull this tough camp, which is going to restore balance in the lane back to close to their tower, making it easier for the Morphling to farm. Drink of water. I have my voice. Oh, I hate dead air. I'm so embarrassed by it, but my throat's killing me. Didn't mean to cast this much by myself. I wasn't forewarned. So let's take a look at this creep scores real quick. Queen of Pain actually 3-1 CS. Really shouldn't have had that easy of a time against a dual lane mid. I mean, definitely a tough hero to keep down. Has a great animation, but still a little bit questionable. And speaking of Queen of Pain, actually is going to be roaming up top with an Invis rune. This should hopefully, for the Radiant at least, be a dead Venomancer. Venomancer, though, I guess they had the ward that saw it, so he was playing back, but now he's foolishly come up. And though, just thanks to his really nice ward placement, always doing a great job making sure to keep that ward up over there, which really just requires a lot of practice and patience. Can see the Earthshaker and knows something's up, so he's playing back as much as possible. And they know that Queen of Pain's missing, and I think they saw the rune in time. I mean, they had the ward on the cliff, which would have seen it, so they know about the invis, and they're not being fooled. And there's just no way they only have one stun here, so there's no way they can take out this Morphling. And so, yeah, I don't know. Oh, and actually, no, they are going to go on the Venomancer now here. The Fisher actually is going to block the Nyx away from the Venomancer, so the Fisher actually causing his team as much trouble as the Venomancer, actually. And Ravage coming in from the Tide, this is going to just be terrible for the Radiant here. Wow. Triple kill for the Tide, getting team wiped, basically, almost, with only the Windrunner live top. Tide making a great entrance, actually has opted to go the max Anchor Smash build, which is pretty typical when you're farming Tide. Typically, if you're kind of support Tide in the tri lane or something, or supporting in dual lane, then you go max Gush. But if you're farming, getting max Anchor Smash is good, because you're getting basically the same damage early on against heroes, but the difference is that you're getting more reliable farming mechanism, and maybe more AoE damage, like in a situation like that. Basically, everything that happened just there, though, I mean, I hate to place blame, but it was entirely at the cause of that. Oh, Queen of Pain, actually, yeah, I missed it. Deciding to dive the Crystal Maiden mid. And does pick up the kill on the Crystal Maiden, but at the cost of her life, so it's really not worth it, trading your life for support. Tide sucks. Has the mana boots off cooldown, but it actually requires a little bit of mana to use the mana boots. It has to wait to get that mana, so he can then mana boots and then have some mana to Anchor Smash, which I assume is what he wanted to do. Morphling getting attacked a little bit here, but he's not really afraid. And actually, the Venomancer's can come in now. Venomancer misses the Gale, though, so they're not going to be able to get a kill on the Lich like they would have liked, and both carries are just going to have to back up. Venomancer's still chasing here, but there's nothing he can do. Actually, maybe he can, because the Lich was foolish enough to turn back around, but no. It's going to be fine. Actually, Waveform is going to come out in a second here, and while the Nyx is going to go down. So just staying around a little bit too long from the Radiant there. Anyway, what I wanted to say is everything that happened at the top was entirely thanks to that amazing Fisher from the Earthshaker. Blocking the Venomancer on the other side of the Fisher was what caused his team, well, it didn't cause his team. His team's own foolishness is what caused them to dive. But what made it necessary for them to dive to get the kill, which led to them diving, which led to them all getting killed. And meanwhile, the Brood does pick up a kill bottom on this Windrunner, so with help from the Tide, thanks to the Tide. And now they're going to pressure this tower, skipping the creep wave and taking it down. They're going to bring all these spiders, to come take this tower, and this should be the first tier 1 tower going down. Queen of Pain, you would like to get a rune, wouldn't you? No, you were just kind of posturing a little bit there. Anyway, taking a look at items. Morphling does have his Ring of Health. I assume that will be going in towards Lincoln's, most likely. I don't really foresee anything else. And actually, it looks like I don't know, Lich is actually just going to harass them. They just really can't do anything against this Morphling here. Just not picking enough stuns. Well, they had already had the Lich. I mean, they picked Earthshaker after that, which is a stun, and well, it's hard to get carries with stuns. I mean, that's just not very common. At least not in Dota, maybe in Han, where all the heroes are ridiculous. Queen of Pain actually trying to kill this Crystal Maiden here, but actually blinks into the trees. Frostbite, oh! Didn't have vision, I guess, to get the Frostbite off, unfortunately, which would have prevented the Queen of Pain from TPing out, and actually led to a Queen of Pain dying from a very questionable blink into the trees here. And Tide has picked up his blink, speaking of items, so that's going to be really big for them. It does have Ravage up again, so this next team fight is going to go drastically in the favor of the Dire, I think. But yeah, as I was saying, just not enough stuns to counter the Morphling. The Morphling, despite being a hero that I don't like, ended up being a pretty good pick here because the opposing team has no stuns, which just makes it extremely easy for him to farm, which is what he needs to do. And it made it easy for him to be aggressive early on using Waveform. Looks like they're going to go here. Tide is going to blink in probably about 2 seconds here and get a huge Ravage on 3 heroes. Yep, exactly like planned. Waveform is going to pick up 2, so great positioning there by the Morphling to be able to Waveform 2 heroes at once. And yeah, that's basically exactly what I expected would happen with that Tide blink, and they're going to turn this into a push on the Tier 1 tower top. Venomancer with 4 levels and wards. Oh, Morphling actually decided to go in here. Tide blinks in to get a gush on the Nyx, but Nyx shouldn't have any problem running out here. Although meanwhile, Crystal Maiden looks like gets a solo kill on the Queen of Pain. Unfortunately, I didn't see what was going on there. A little bit too much action top. Speaking of action top, actually, Morphling does manage to pick up the lifesteal, who I guess turned back around with the Earthshaker. Sorry, I switched to look mid, and then there's kills top. So basically, what this amounts to is just the Dire carving up the Radiant in every lane. Ever since that slight misstep with the Brood dying to the Windrunner solo, they've just been handling the Radiant here. And speaking of the Brood is now bottom, still pushing down this tower, constantly pressuring. And look, the Dire's, or the Radiant's a little bit too worried about what's going on top now, so they're trying to chase down this Morphling, which is just never gonna. Ooh, actually, nice ult from the Queen of Pain. Unfortunately, not able to target the Venomancer who should be. Morph is going to start morphing strength, but actually it's not going to be enough. He has no mana here, so it's very unlikely he's going to. Oh no, actually it is likely he's going to get out because there are no more slows or stunts from the Radiant. I should have always remembered that. And so 2 heroes are actually going to make it out with basically no HP. As I was saying, Queen of Pain should have focused that Venomancer, but I guess, he's just thinking, he doesn't really focus anyone, but he did have a right click that if it had been on the Venomancer would have actually been a kill rather than the Morphling, which wasn't. But he's thinking, I got to take down this Morphling as soon as possible, but this Morphling is getting too much farm, etc. But that's the problem. When you're playing against Morphling, it's kind of like playing against Anti-Mage. You just kind of have to ignore that the hero is there and basically just beat the rest of the team. If you focus too much on the Morphling, yeah, you're just not really going to be able to kill him. It doesn't really matter if he farms for a while because he needs so many items to be effective, especially when you're going to Lincoln's build. In order to deal damage, you're going to need Lincoln's Manta, and probably one more item. Even with Lincoln's Manta, you don't really do very much. Yeah, like I was talking about, this Brood is constantly pressuring this bottom, making it really difficult for the Radiant. They want to address top as much as possible. Whenever they do that, this Brood just keeps pushing in the bottom. He actually has 3,300 gold. There's a possibility he goes for the Brood Radiance build, but I would guess he just hasn't had the opportunity to buy anything. Although I'm surprised he wouldn't go, sell one of these tangos and get his treads. I would assume maybe he's just going to go straight to BKB, and meanwhile, Queen of Pain getting caught in the mid. It's kind of, I guess, I shouldn't be fooled when I see Queen of Pain up against 2 heroes. I should know that the Queen of... And speaking of dying, next stop. God, I'm missing so much action. I'm sure the cameraman's getting it though, because he's amazing. I'm just sitting here watching the Brood. It is 3-17, so it's not like this action is the most relevant. I guess I shouldn't say that. People probably not be happy with it, but 7,500 gold advantage, so yeah. But yeah, just postulating on what Brood is going to go for next time. Maybe straight to BKB rather than Boots. Already has enough move speed from 4 levels in webs. I don't know. Meanwhile, though, Morphling and Veno are going to push out top while the rest of their team comes down here to help pressure bottom. Wanting to catch someone. Tide does have his ult again, so wanting to blink and get someone here. And the CM actually has gone Tranquil Boots. Nice little support item there. Happy to see that being used. Actually, it looks like she wants to go place a ward here, but doesn't have one on her. Meanwhile, Venomancer is just forcing back the Nyx. Nyx is going to try to turn around on this Venomancer, but yeah, he should be having TP supports coming in. Actually, not TP supports. He's just got his entire team walking over here. Venomancer is going to go down, and Morphling's going to have to back out. We'll start morphing, I assume. Windrunner trying to get in position for a shackle shot. Ends up not throwing a very good one. I don't really think it would matter, though. I don't think... Well, no, actually, it probably would have. Maybe if they got in that shackle shot, it would have been enough. Morphling did a good job kind of like maneuvering around in an unpredictable manner. You know, you can't predict what crazy people are going to do, and he kind of just, like, he got that crazy look in his eyes, and he started moving left and right, back and forth, and not really knowing what he's going to do next. You had no way of positioning yourself in a way to get a good shackle off, and then just kind of ended up throwing out a desperation shackle. But there won't be any more shackles coming out against this Morphling, as he does basically have his, excuse me, have his Lincolns finished. And meanwhile, Brood, who I spent plenty of time staring at when she wasn't doing anything, now has picked up another Tier 2 tower. So that's two Tier 2 towers down for the Dire, as well as obviously 2 Tier 1s. Tide actually blinking in. It's not his ult, though. And, yeah, Lich ult is going to fly. Tide does a good job just splitting from his team, though, and so that ult is going to do basically nothing. Which is a little bit rough, because if you had something to turn the game around, it would have to be ults usually, and that doesn't seem to be like it's going to be the case. I wonder if Brood's ever going to spend her money, or she's just... Oh, and actually Tide blinking in again here, and oh my god. Just almost two shots the Lich. Wow. Crystal Maiden coming in with one last blast to finish off the Lich there. Nice job. Tide, yeah. Just with the blink in, Gush, Anchor Smash combo, almost completely killing the Lich. This poor Lich just has, yeah, gauntlets of strength and wards. Not even a wand or anything. No branches. Just gauntlets and a ward. Meanwhile, Tide actually deciding to go back in on the Windrunner. Windrunner is just going to Windrun away, though. She's smarter than that. And Brood does buy up her BKB. A little bit disappointed there. I'd hope she'd do something a little bit more interesting after saving gold for that long. TP actually going to come in from the Lich here. Lich does not have his ult, though, so I don't really see him doing too much. The Dire is pretty low, though, so they are going to have to back out here. Venomancer could throw out some wards and retreat, yeah. And it's going to be up to the Nyx to try to catch one with open wounds. He still has 8 seconds left on that, so we'll see. They're all kind of splitting up here. Crystal Maiden is going to freeze the Queen of Pain. I wonder about that. If that was Crystal Maiden, I probably would have been running, and that's definitely going to be her death. Venomancer is going to come in from the side, though, and has his ult. Oh, and Tide ult is actually back up. So even if the Crystal Maiden goes down, this is going to cost the Radiant dearly. And Brood is actually coming in now. Unfortunately, doesn't have her items yet. So actually, he's moving very slowly. Brood, you really should have gotten treads by now. Yeah, I guess it's not costing the Radiant that dearly because... Oh, well, actually, no. There's the Morphling in the mid, and then meanwhile, the Venomancer does get taken down by the Queen of Pain in the Lifestealer in the woods. So, yeah, whatever. 3 for 3, not so terrible, but could have been worse, I guess. Although, I don't know, it can't really be much worse than 10,000 gold difference in 17 minutes. Yeah, that's pretty bad, especially when you're playing against a team with a Morphling and a Brood. Oh, how rude of me. How rude of me. Nyx deciding to try to go toe-to-toe with the Morphling. Typically, Nyx can stand toe-to-toe with just about any hero, but interestingly enough, has opted for only 1 point in Feast. Maxing Rage is fine when you're on lane over Feast, but typically speaking, we're going to max Feast second instead of Open Wounds. Leveling Open Wounds past 1 really isn't that necessary. It gives a little bit extra lifesteal, but that's pretty insignificant. The most significant thing is it does decrease the cooldown, but that's really not as important usually. It's more points of Feast. Tide going to... Wow. So, yeah, using the Morphling very effectively, waveforming from long distance. I mean, that is the great strength of the Morphling, is his ability to waveform in from a long way out, and combined with other nuking, get kills. And nuking like the Crystal Maiden, who I think is maxing, yeah, has been maxing both her offensive abilities rather than going for the ridiculous aura build. Not ridiculous, it's just much more fun to play this way. Anyway, it looks like they're going to want to go in here. Ooh, Shackle Shot is actually going to latch the CM to the Tide. CM should be going down here if the Nyx can actually get in there, and actually the Queen of Pain decides, you know, Nyx, you've had your shot, I'm just going to ult, and meanwhile the Brood has decided to run in, but maybe not coordinating that one with the rest of her team, who have all decided to back out, and yeah, she actually might get caught here. Ooh, yeah, is going to go down. Queen of Pain getting a nice scream off. Nyx, meanwhile, is going to open wounds the Tide. Tide is just going to blink out, though, because he didn't actually take damage. Queen of Pain still chasing, but does not have mana for anything else. Has Tread switched to mana, so there's really no way of regaining mana either. Let's see if Tide can keep baiting them until he has his ult up, and he'd hoped to do that, but they eventually did leave. And meanwhile, Morphling just went back top to farm some more. Like I said, does have his Lincolns done, and 2,200 gold here, so can pick up Yasha. Maybe we'll just opt to go for the shotgun style, which would certainly be more entertaining. And I mean, if I was him, I probably would do that if I was off by this much, just to get more kills, be a little bit more exciting, entertain the viewers. You know, you got to play to the crowd. But it's possible he would go Manta as well. Yeah, meanwhile, I'm missing a kill mid. Yeah, whatever. I guess. All right, fine. I'll actually start paying attention to where the kills are going on. It's just so tough. I don't know, when one team's just so clearly outplaying another team to stay focused in the game. And speaking of outplaying, Nyx now has 4 levels in open wounds, so, you know, during those long chases, and the Radiant Courier actually is going to get taken out here. I assume Morphling will just waveform and try to catch it. They actually move it onto the top of the cliff there, so I don't think there's any way for the Dire to actually pick that off. What was on the Courier? Point booster? Windrunner gets a shackle shot on the Tide and pings it a bunch of times to show, hey, look, I shackle shot at a Tide. It doesn't really matter, though. Team wasn't in position, and, yeah, I do need coffee. Well, no. You know, it's the last game was so exciting, so my adrenaline was up, and then this game is the complete opposite of exciting. Pushing down this tower a little bit, just applying a little bit of pressure. And, yeah. Yeah, Gino, big shout out to the tournament organizer, Gino, doing a great job. Everyone loves Gino, basically. He's an amazing guy. If you haven't read the interviews with him on Game Replays or join Dota, I would suggest you do that. Really a very positive, and speaking of positive force for anything, the Tide blinking in. Actually, Mech does come out for the Radiant here, thanks to the Windrunner, so that actually kind of spares them the embarrassment of getting completely destroyed. And actually, they are going to turn this around. There, I think, was a buyback from the Dire. No buyback, just only 1 dead so far, but actually there's going to be a few more before the day's over. Crystal Maiden getting shackled to a tree here, and Queen of Pain going to blink and finish that off. Queen of Pain really focused on getting these last hits of heroes with Scream or ult. Really wants to be able to say to her team at the end of this game, hey look, we lost, but my score was awesome. What is her score? 8-6. Maybe not so awesome. I forgot how many times she died mid. But anyway, as I was saying, everyone who's watching this, what few viewers of you there are, should give a big thanks to Gino for organizing this tournament and for all his work with eCal and various other Dota 2 and Dota 1 related esports work. He's an amazing guy, so thanks to him that we are here today. Now back to the game. Mystic Stab up on Tide. We'll be going for Shivas, I assume. Probably not Sheep. You know, if you saw that situation there, basically there were like 4 heroes who had almost no life left, and if he just had the Shivas, a little bit of extra AoE burst damage, they would have actually been able to finish them off before the mech came out, before the fight was turned a little bit. You know, the gold graph actually, yes, turned a little bit, starts to slant slightly back up. People probably don't appreciate my sarcasm too much. Deny this tower, deny the mid tower, you know, opts not to deny the tower. Even though it just creeps there. Lich and, well, Earthshaker wasn't quite in position. Lich was definitely in position, but actually just backed off. So, kind of giving up a free tower there, unfortunately. And Morphling has gone Ghost Scepter, so I'm certainly happy to see that. Always a little bit risky to go the shotgun build against high magic damage heroes like Earthshaker. Not necessarily Windrunner, but Windrunner's long disable, which can still be risky as well. But like the Earthshaker, who does a lot of stun and stun and damage, or the Queen of Pain, who does a ton of magic damage. I mean, kind of risky to pick up this, go the Ethereal Blade build against them. But like I said, when you're winning by a lot, you just want to win more, and it's a strong build. It does. I mean, like I said, I was sure I was going to eat my words. Brood, why do you only have regular boots? Get treads. Are you really going to go travels or something? Just go buy your treads. But yeah, I was talking about how the Morphling doesn't do any damage in the mid-game. This is the one way that the Morphling does do damage. This build has kind of fallen out of favor, generally speaking. Well, it's not necessarily fallen out of favor, but it's less common than just going Linken's Manta, you know, the more farming-oriented build. Basically because it is a very risky build. You basically have a ton of burst damage really quick, and then after that you don't have a whole lot, and you're very susceptible to magic damage and to disables. But when it works, and I'm sure here he will do plenty of damage in the next team fight, hopefully. Just needs about 400 more gold to finish off his Ethereal Blade. And he has the Aegis now as well, so he's not really going to be too afraid of just diving in there and doing as much damage as he can. Meanwhile, Brood's still just pushing up his bot lane. That's a lot of gold. Should have treads. Use the courier if you're too lazy to go back to the side shop. I don't really know. It looks like there might be a smoke up from the Radiant here, or from the Dire here. Yeah, smoke is on Venomancer, so I assume they will smoke since there are 3 of them grouped up here. There's a ward up from the Radiant right here on this cliff, which would give vision of them trying to come in and gank. Pretty smart ward when you're this far behind. It allows you to farm a little bit more safely in your jungle. And the smoke is still not up, so I'm just deciding to carry the smoke. Don't actually want to use it. It's fine with me. I didn't want to see it anyway. Nakes does have his armlet up, so getting to some reasonable point, although, I don't know, Tread's armlet, let's take a look at his gold per minute compared to Morphling's. He is at 267 gold per minute compared to Morphling, who's 526. So Morphling basically doubling the Nakes' gold per minute, so yeah. Even with the armlet pickup, it's not going to be too helpful, and Morphling is actually 150 gold, one more last hit. And yeah, actually has enough to go finish the Ethereal Blade right now, which is what I assume he's going to. Yes, that is what I said. Shotgun morph, Ethereal Blade. So yeah, we'll be able to two-shot some heroes here. Yeah, I am happy with that, actually. It is the only acceptable way to play. Well, it's not the only acceptable way to play morph, but it's the only way I find morph to be a relatively reasonable hero. If you are doing this, so that you actually have some sort of damage, and then you can still be a carry later on, because I mean, Ethereal Blade, it gives nice stats. No kidding about that. So it looks like they are going to go in here now. I'm surprised they didn't try smoking up, but there is actually a revelation ward from the Radiant here. And actually, yeah, there's the shotgun from the Morphling, just completely melting the Lich. Lich, do you even have... No, you've bought in 2 branches. I give you a golf clap for that one. You don't even have magic or a stick yet, although that wouldn't have saved you there, but no real health items. So the Morphling basically just laughs at him as he two-shots him. It didn't even actually have to use the Adaptive Strike here. Normally, for those of you guys that don't know how you're going to use this, or what you want to do, is you usually want to Ethereal Blade the target, and then either Waveform Adaptive Strike or Adaptive Strike Waveform. But there, just the Ethereal Blade Waveform was enough. And the Brood, meanwhile, had actually popped BKB, try to get a little something going on the bottom, and they're probably going to try pushing in here. Morphing just a ton of agility. He's actually going to go down to 1 strength. Oh, how ballsy. I mean, hand switch Treads to agility. Wow. Sitting at 200 damage, which is nice, but I mean, he really just wants to blast someone. He's going to try to do that as soon as possible. He has the Aegis, so he can get away with it. Queen of Pain, who actually survives there. A little bit surprising. I thought that would be enough burst damage to take down the Queen of Pain. Used all 3 abilities and used them correctly there, but it wasn't quite enough. Queen of Pain does have a little bit of health. Thankfully, with Aghadim's finish and Tread set to strength, was able to survive that. So the Dire is wasting a little bit of time here, but the great thing about this Ethereal Blade is that it's short cooldown, so you can have the option to do it again in a few seconds. Stun comes out, but that's not really too much of a threat. And Tide's just waiting for the opportunity to blink in and Ravage. Yep, just like that. It does pop his Shivas now, which he does have. Morphling does Ethereal Blade the Queen of Pain, but the Queen of Pain does blink out, so he just decides to turn around and kill the Lich instead. Lich ult is actually bouncing around a lot, but like I said, there's too many items up there. Dire here. Nake's doing a nice job going into... Ooh, and Queen of Pain actually does get a nice ult off, but it just doesn't really matter. Nakes toggles the armlet effectively, but it's still going to go down, and yeah. That should be GG, I would imagine. I hate to call it too soon, but I think you guys know that at least mentally I've already called this game a while ago. Ooh, buyback from the Lifestealer. He's going to go do things here. Morphling, waveforming in, gets the shotgun off on the Windrunner. Doesn't really care that he dies because he has the Aegis. And the Lifestealer who bought back is going to die as Morphling as soon as Morphling comes back up. Unfortunately, Ethereal Blade is on cooldown, so he's probably not going to die with this Earth Shaker, who he would very much like to kill. Maybe he should start morphing back to strength. Well, I guess he's not going to, since they're going to right-click the racks down now anyway. No, I have his ultimate orbed up, so I would assume that's... Well, it could be a Scotty, you never know. But maybe a Manta next would be the most likely case. Yep, he waveformed over, and yeah, he actually just waveformed there to close the distance to the Lich, and then just two-shot the Lich. I really like that sound he makes when he kills the Lich like that. It sounds like a, well, if water can laugh, that's what it sounds like, I guess. Anyway, I assume they will take more buildings here, and the Radiant will GG at some point, I would hope. Well, I don't want to say I would hope, but I would like to see another game in. Morphling gonna waveform in again. Does actually have cooldown on Ethereal Blade for a little bit longer. Needs to start morphing some strength, yeah, and he does, so he's gonna be just fine. Shackle Shot gonna latch him to a tree, but he's already morphing strength, which doesn't really matter. Queen of Pain, amazing ult there. Great job by the Queen of Pain, but it's not really gonna matter. It's just waveform. Morphling gets unstunned there. He's gonna come and kill the Queen of Pain. Windrunner, meanwhile, able to pick up the Brood, so remembering fondly the time when she got the kill on Brood early on. That's another one. And Nake's actually trying to pick up this Tide. Whoa, really long Adaptive Strike, yeah. Higher strength than agility on the Morphlings. That stun lasts a long time. And meanwhile, the Nake's uses actually his ult, Infest, on a creep to pick up the Tide kills. So kind of heads up play there. Brood picks up an Orchid, strong against escape heroes, specifically Queen of Pain, Windrunner, mostly Queen of Pain. And they're all going to group up and come push in now. Tide does blink forward, uses his Shivas. Actually being a little bit too aggressive here, though. Does pop his Ravage eventually, though. Nake's doing a lot of damage to him, but I guess it just doesn't really matter. Lich going to launch the ult. Ult launching kind of effectively, not hitting too many creeps, but it doesn't really matter. Nake's back in here, trying to do as much as he can. Really wants to take down the Tide before he dies, but it's not going to happen. Morphling should adapt to Strike or Waveform to finish off that Windrunner, and now it's going to be GG. I would assume finally morphing back all to Agility. Oh yeah, Adapt to Strike wouldn't have done any damage there, really. And yeah, morphing back to Agility so that he can right-click these racks down faster, and that the smiley face comes out, or the tongue sticking out face comes out from the Windrunner. So I guess that indicates the GG. Never mind, no need. Who knows? Yeah. Anyway, mid racks go down. Top racks should be soon to follow. Brood will create some spiders up and continue to help this push, and GG comes out from, is that FFS? So, yes, I'm sure the admins will post the results. And well played to both teams, specifically the Dire here. Just basically had better lane setup, and that was really what turned it around. Some kind of questionable deaths from the Queen of Pain in the mid, and just nice early levels in the Tide, which I was happy to see. So congratulations to J4S, well played. Good all-around game by most of their players, not specifically, especially though the Morphling, 19-1. A little bit of show-off score, obviously. I mean, his team helped him to get there, but yeah. At least he appeased the viewers by going for the shotgun style, and yeah, that'll be that. Again, this was Hari for Dota Live. I hope you guys enjoyed this cast to some extent. I'm sure it wasn't very entertaining. Unfortunately, like I said, the game wasn't very entertaining due to the one-sidedness from a very early point. But regardless, I had fun, and I look forward to casting the next game, which should be coming up pretty soon here in the Prodota2 $20,000 tournament league thingy. I should really confirm whether it's a tournament or league. North American Qualifier. So again, thanks guys for watching, and we should have another game coming up here shortly, so stay tuned.